In Escape from Tarkov, you probably heard the term gear fear tossed around at one point or another. Maybe you've been told you have it, or maybe you've heard it said in joke or insult. If you do know what it is, maybe you're looking to learn how to overcome it. So today, I'll be explaining what gear fear is, why people have it, and how to beat it. Before we get into it, you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/GiantBoostsock or on TikTok under the same name. To start off, I want to mention that this video is basically going to be the sequel to my old solo anxiety video. While solo anxiety and gear fear are different things, they typically do go hand in hand. Both are mental hurdles and both affect a wide number of Tarkov players, beginner and intermediate alike. That being said, I highly suggest checking out my solo anxiety video after this one if you haven't already. Gear fear in Tarkov is the concept of not using a gun, piece of armor, or other equipment out of fear of losing it by dying in a raid. If you've ever said in any fashion, I don't want to use X item because I don't want to lose it, that's gear fear. If you said, I don't want to use my Alton, I only have one, that's gear fear. If you've ever done any variation of letting a high tier piece of gear sit in your stash and gather dust for weeks at a time, that's gear fear. Players often develop gear fear once they establish an understanding of scarcity in Tarkov. In your first few hundred hours, you just use whatever you have in front of you because you don't know how to get anything else yet. But as you begin to develop game knowledge, there becomes this understanding of how rare certain gear is, and you start to develop a false perception of when to actually use this gear. I'll make it pretty clear for you right now from the start. Unless using a particular high tier piece of gear would hinder you from accomplishing your goal, you should use it. What do I mean by that? Well, if you have a Zabralo on standby to complete the quest, The Good Times Part 1, which literally requires you to use a Zabralo, that's a valid reason to hold on to it. If you're doing your Tarkov Shooter Part 5 nighttime bolt action kills, you probably don't want to run an Alton because it'll be a nightmare trying to see what you're doing. But if you're going for Punisher kills, or any Jaeger kill task, or even just running a raid in general, why would you not want to put yourself at the best advantage you can? I've talked about this quite a bit in the past, and I tend to ramble about it all the time, but I'll say it again. Good gear does not make you a better player, it allows you to make more mistakes. If you have better armor, you can probably take more hits. If you have a better gun build, you can aim faster and shoot more accurately with high ergo and low recoil. If you're running better ammo, you can simply kill enemies faster. If you have a big backpack, you can loot more and make more money every raid. These are all good things, and if you have the means to do so, why not give yourself that advantage? That gear is doing absolutely nothing for you, waiting for you to run it months from now. And if you lose it, it doesn't make a difference. It wasn't doing anything for you sitting in your stash anyways. EFT is a game at the end of the day, and it's more fun to win more often because you have the best advantage you can. With the basics out of the way though, let's move on to how to actually overcome this mental hurdle. Like I stated earlier, players often develop gear fear after their first couple hundred hours when they start to have an understanding of scarcity in the game. Once you lose a piece of gear, it's gone for good. Maybe you don't have the trader level to get a replacement, or maybe you don't have enough Roubles, or maybe you aren't good at PvP, or maybe you just simply don't know how to use that piece of gear. Those are just some of the big ones, but whatever the reason might be, there's a way to overcome it. Let's hit each of these one by one. Starting off simple, let's talk about money in EFT. It's way easier to make money than ever before, thanks to the removal of the found and raid requirement for selling on the flea, as well as just the state of the economy. Almost every single item you can loot in EFT has value. I've always said, when looting in raid, shoot for 10k rubles per slot in your bag. But nowadays, that's almost hard not to accomplish. Also, if you struggle with money, scab between every raid. You can easily make hundreds of thousands of rubles in minutes with a scab raid, without risking anything. Also, with factory being expanded, scav raids can be faster than ever since there's plenty of loot to go around. Additionally, if you have arena, you can easily make 200,000 to 300,000 rubles a match, plus whatever you make from dailies and weeklies, and then of course transfer it all over to your main account. There's a limit of 1.5 mil that you can transfer per day, but still, you can't complain with how easy the money is to get. Lastly, have a loot run you're comfortable with. Pick a map you're confident with, and hit a loot run with a passive playstyle every few raids between questing or PvP. Every single map is viable for making money now, so you don't need to worry about forcing yourself through a particular loot-heavy area. Whatever your money-making method ends up being, work it into your routine so that you always have a stack of cash to keep supporting your gear needs. For those that are struggling with PvP, there's no better time than now to use the best gear you have available. The last thing you want as a player that isn't confident in combat is to die in one shot due to a mistake. So, run the best armor you have. Better armor allows you to take more hits, giving you more time alive and more of a chance to win the fight. If you're not the best PvPer, you're likely going to be out of position more often than not. If you're out of position with weak armor, you're just asking to be sent back to the lobby over and over again. In addition, if you don't have the best aim, there's nothing worse that you can run than a gun with bad recoil. Learning to aim in EFT is a ton easier when you're not battling the bouncy, unpredictable recoil of the game. So, Invest a bit more in gun builds that bring the recoil down. Also, it's worth mentioning that you should be using the best meds you have available to you. While running cheese med kits can be cheap, they take multiple actions to heal a limb and have low total usage. Better med kits like IFAX and Salewas not only can heal a limb in one use and have higher total uses, but can also stop a bleed on a limb and heal it at the same time. Injectors, too, should be used frequently in combat. Propitols, Zagustins, ATGs, and more are still extremely powerful in the game, so there's no reason not to use them in order to give yourself the best advantage possible. When it comes to practicing PvP, it's easier now than ever, with players having access to multiplayer offline raids and arena. Offline PvP with friends is a great way to simulate actual in-raid combat, while arena is a great way to really dial in your movement, aim, and reaction time. In my opinion, playing free-for-all on Chop Shop in arena is the best option, as you can easily just grind extremely fast PvP for hours to hone your skills, while still progressing your PMC. If you don't have high trader levels yet, use the best gear you've acquired so far. Then, when it's all gone, buy the best you can from traders. While you can't skip progressing your traders to unlock the ability to purchase higher tier gear, you can still make the best of what you have available to you. You can still get decent gun builds at low level traders and even access tons of gun parts at a low price on the market. Gun parts used to reach absurdly high prices on the market, but since players can now sell parts on the flea immediately after buying them from traders, prices tend to stay a bit lower than they used to. Armor and ammo can be a bit more tricky because of flea restrictions, but you can still shoot for at least tier 4 armor for cheap and mid-range ammo. Better ammo secures more kills, and more kills means more ammo. You can also very easily find high-tier ammo boxes on most maps nowadays in their usual spawns. In previous wipes, these spawns held mostly throwaway ammo, but currently, these spawns are abundant with high-pen ammo of all calibers, so there's no reason not to use your best rounds whenever you have them.
I think they put them into the fucking rooms.
Yep.
I can't see them. To the ref room.
Got him.
If the fact you've never used a particular gun before is holding you back from running it in raid, go make a kit with it in arena. If you don't have arena, run a few offline raids with it. Set yourself up on factory with horde mode enabled and try to live as long as possible with that gun. It'll get you used to every aspect of handling the gun, as well as serve as a decent aim trainer. If you've never used a particular armor or helmet before, check it out in offline as well in order to get used to the weight and turn speed limitations. There's no better way to figure out how to use a piece of equipment than to just start using it and force yourself through the uncomfortable stages of getting used to it. With all that being said though, I'd like to touch on another concept which should help ease you out of that gear fear, that being that good gear is not as good as you might think. What I mean by that is, beyond a certain point, gear has somewhat diminishing returns. An example would be face shields. While they do have a chance to protect your eyes and jaws, they do not protect the throat. You can be wearing tier 6 armor in an Alton and still easily die in one stray bullet to the throat hitbox, especially since the hitbox feels much more exposed this wipe. As for guns, recoil received a major rework last wipe and was tweaked even more this wipe. While it felt like in the past you needed to reach the lowest recoil possible to make a gun feel good to use, it now feels like getting halfway to that point is totally viable. That means the parts that once made guns hit meta status aren't as sought after, and you shouldn't worry about burning through them. The slight extra advantage that the highest tiers of gear allows is great, but doesn't make enough of a difference that you should ever be saving it for certain scenarios.
Got one.
So that's my ramble on gear fear. I could of course go deeper into other aspects, but I think the ideas I touched on are a good start for those that might be experiencing it. Whatever you're feeling, remember that EFT is just a game, and like any other game, you're only going to get better by playing it more. It's also a game where everything periodically gets deleted anyways, so don't get too attached to any item or stat of any kind. Set achievable goals for yourself, chase them, and have fun. But thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.
Don't worry. There, okay.
Yeah, I'd be worried there.
Yeah, me too.
First floor.
Okay, I'm going up the opposite side. Killed him.
On the stairs.
Kidding. Try not bad. Just want it to be over.
You found it. Where?
Hello? Oh, that's 2. That's 3.